everything that Dr. Fogg teaches is that habits happen when your brain feels good. Your brain changes when it feels good. So, like we were talking about, when you make yourself feel bad about something that you didn't do, your brain is not going to start doing the behavior. The other thing is we need to stop trying to rely on motivation to create the habit. Because if you want to go to the gym and you haven't been going to the gym, you're going to have to rely on motivation. And maybe January 1st, or maybe the day after your pants don't fit well, you're going to be very motivated. But as the time passes and you have, that's not such a big motivator, the difficulty of a task is going to prevent you from doing it. You're also not automating that.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Boom Vision podcast. I am happy that we're kicking off 2023 with this week's guest, Julie DeLucca-Collins, who is a business coach and certified tiny habits coach. Life has definitely thrown Julie a few curveballs, and with her personal, professional, and spiritual journey collided, a beautiful path emerged that gave her clarity in her intentions and purpose. You'll definitely want to tune in to Julie's story and how creating tiny habits has transformed her life and the people that she serves. Let's cue the intro. Welcome to the Boom Vision podcast, the show that empowers you to live an enriching life physically, mentally, and spiritually. I am your host, Benjamin Ye, and I created this podcast to give you perspectives on how to strengthen your mindset so that you can build optimal health, create aligned wealth, and connect with your higher self. It's all interconnected. Let's get to work. There's a quote I want to share. Always remember you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. This quote was by Christopher Robin. Welcome to episode 38 of the Boom Vision podcast. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone. I am delighted to start off this new year with today's interview with Julie DeLucca-Collins. I first met Julie in the same business community, SBI Pro, that was started by Pat Flynn. After meeting in the community and being a guest on her podcast, Casa de Confidence, which I recommend you check out, I knew we had very similar vibe and energy. I invited her to my mastermind group early in 2022. I'm just blessed to build this warm friendship. In getting to know Julie's own life journey, I just knew I had to have her on this show. As a brief background, Julie DeLucca-Collins is the founder and CEO of Go Confidently Services, the host of the popular Casa de Confidence podcast, and her weekly radio show, Confident You, featured on a global talk radio network. As a business and life strategist coach, Julie helps women business owners launch or grow their businesses, get clients, be productive, and achieve their dreams. Julie helps her clients create simple habits to achieve goals and change their lives. Julie is a sought-after public speaker, author, trainer, and course creator. She is certified as a coach in cognitive behavioral techniques, holistic coach, and tiny habits. She is also certified as a social emotional learning facilitator and has completed her 200 hours yoga teacher certification. Julie enjoys helping her clients build mental fitness and improve their mindset to be at peace and improve peak performance. Julie is also #1 best-selling author of the book, Confident You, Simple Habits to Live the Life You Imagined. So without further ado, here's Julie. Julie DeLucca-Collins, welcome to the Boom Vision podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me today. I have been looking forward to our time together.
Me too, Julie. Oh, I'm so glad we're doing this today. To start off, I love to hear your origin story. I know you because we're part of the same mastermind group, but
Mm-hmm.
for our audience, can you share a little bit about where did it all start? What were the chapters and what led to what you're doing today?
Ben, I think that everything in our life leads us to the present moment, right? And at times people say, well, what would you go and do over again? And I would say, there's nothing that I would do a do over on because from an early age, I grew up in El Salvador, which was at the time war torn country. And it wasn't until lately that I realized that that actually was very impactful in my life growing up in a country that was going through a civil war. Now I was lucky enough and fortunate enough that I had great family members, parents who really protected me and really were nurturing. But again, as a child and as a firstborn, I tend to be a perfectionist. I tend to be someone who always likes to be in control of situations as well. Later on, I went and I started my career as a teacher, evolved from being a teacher into the corporate world. And I went into education. I worked for a company, corporate entity that provided educational services to parents. And I was a baby at the time in my late 20s, and I thought I knew it all. Yet I was fortunate enough to have people really mentor me and coach me and pour into me. I ended up growing through the company. The company had a really great ability to mentor people and to grow people from the inside into their executives. And that's exactly the great training that I had. I started by being a person that only did one segment of training and operations. And then I went to learn what development was like, growing, marketing, IT, you name it. Later on, I was fortunate to be the person that represented that company at the national stage. I went and did some advocacy for educational services at Capitol Hill, which was, I can't believe it still when I talk about it, that I had that opportunity to see all that inner workings. But throughout all of that, and in my late 20s, I got married to my first husband at 29. And I think that that's very important because it's a big chapter of my life. I was with him for the majority of my 20s into all of my 30s. We were married, but the marriage failed for a lot of different reasons. But at the time, I was really intent on making things work. And again, controlling the circumstances. I didn't know anything about mindset. I didn't know anything about some of the things that now I've come to appreciate and that I use in my life to really be able to guide me. And I will say that there's the one thing that has been a constant has been faith. I believe in things that I don't see. And although I might have struggled, whether it be growing in my career or whether it be in that marriage, I knew that things would be okay and that I could control a lot of it. But I also think that for many of those years, I lived by default as opposed to living by deciding how I wanted to show up and deciding what I wanted to create for myself. And overall, when my first marriage ended, I decided to really invest in myself. And that was the first time I worked with a coach, and everything changed. All of a sudden, I realized that things weren't happening to me, but were really happening for me. And I started to really do some of that inner work. And certainly it never ends, right? You kind of evolve from one point to another. I would say in my mid 40s, I can't say I met, because I met my now husband, my partner in crime and life, Dan. I met him when I was in my early 20s, but we went and married other people. And when his marriage ended, my marriage ended, we sort of, continued our friendship. And eventually we realized that being together was for us. And here we are. I moved from New York City to Connecticut, and I've been here for the past 10 years. And I was still as a senior executive in an educational company. I worked through the industry of education. But through the pandemic, I got the call saying we need to separate. We need to separate from, because our company really needs to continue to keep going and we can't afford to keep executives. And I knew that that was the right choice, specifically because I had a plan in the long term, right? As I was designing and defining what I wanted to do for myself and my life, I wanted to go out on my own and make an impact in the lives of women, because throughout my career, the higher I got in the corporate ladder, the more that I realized that there were a lot of women there. There weren't a lot of women who were minorities like me. And I wanted to be able to help to mentor and to provide the support and the belief into women that sometimes they don't have in themselves, to get them to continue to go after their dreams. And that's how I knew that eventually I wanted to go into coaching. But obviously my plan got, moved up in timeline, and I started then going, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. There was a level of grief when I had to separate, and I was offered the separation package from my company at the beginning of the pandemic. But there was also a level of excitement because I knew that this was where I was meant to be. This is where, and I knew exactly, I was going to serve. I was going to share with others the things that I had learned to help them go and accomplish and go after their dreams. And that's how my company, Go Confidently Services, was born, which is named after the quote by Henry David Thoreau, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams," which is a quote I heard early in life from my dad. And it was something that he, would say, "Honey, I could see you do things confidently." And I don't always feel confident, but what I have found is that in this confidence journey, it's about continuing to show up consistently, continuing to really decide what is it that you want for yourself, and be open to the possibilities that things will align for you. And that's what I'm doing now. I help other women build and grow their businesses so that they can become the CEO of their life and of their business, if they have one, or their careers for that matter.
Wow, I'm getting a full body chills, Julie, because I heard a couple of things, and it reminds me of a quote. Okay, it's a Helen Keller quote, which is, "Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence."
I love it.
And I'm getting a body chills because when I hear your story, Julie, you said earlier about hope, believing in something you can't see, right? And it's so true, because I think I've said it in multiple episodes where it's not seeing is believing, it's believing it's seeing.
Yeah.
And when you pair that with confidence, then the sky in your imagination is the limit, right?
Oh, for sure.
And so that kind of segues into my next question, Julie, which is that you have a podcast show called Casa de Confidence, and
Yes.
you also host a radio show called Confident You. I love to hear, how do you define confidence?
For me, confidence is the ability to be able to do the thing, even if you're starting small, in deciding that it's not about doing it perfect, but it's about doing it and taking the leap. And, failure, and this is the one thing that I wish I'd known earlier, but it's fine that I didn't, because I had to go through the lessons that I did. Failure for me, I was very black and white. You're either good or bad. And if you don't achieve something, or you fail, quote unquote, fail at something, it's a bad thing. But then later on, I found that failure is just lessons, and that you need these lessons to be able to continue to move forward. And for me, with confidence, even when you do the thing and you're not doing it perfectly, you're showing up, man. You're getting great lessons. And it's a matter of being that listener, or that curious observer of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because the more that you are willing to be that curious observer, the more that you're going to be able to then show up a little more. Maybe you showed up 1%, then tomorrow's 2%. And you can continue to scale that up. And then the more that you show up and you make yourself feel good for showing up, right? For doing that minimal amount of work, and then the more that your brain changes, because research talks about this, how it is not motivation that allows you to create a habit. It is actually feeling good that allows your brain to start to encoding the new behavior, as opposed to the old automations that we have.
I love that because it reminds me of that saying, instead of thinking the paradigm of success and failure, it's basically either you learn or you earn, right? Either you learn or you earn. And it's just, you
Yeah,
kind of
for
just,
sure.
symbolizes of what you just shared is, yeah, you have all these lessons and it's not so much of a setback. It's more of, well, what's the lesson learned here? So you can propel you to go forward to that next step. Right.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I love your quotes, Ben, by the way. I mean, you're so good with quotes.
thanks.
I think that I tend to come up with good quotes every once in a while, but then I listen to
Yeah.
your show or I hear you speak when we're in our mastermind and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that Ben, he's good.
I appreciate that, Julie. Well, so just to share kind of, what I do, I mean, and you know this about me, I sense the energy of my guests prior to them coming on. And we talk about, what's the subject matter topic that best would resonate with what they want to share, but also for my audience. And then when I meditate on it, what I do, I just do a little bit of homework where like, okay, if I know the topic matters of whether it's confidence, whether it's energy, whatever it is,
Mhm.
then I just go on and I look through a list of quotes within that subject matter, and I just let my intuition guide me. Hey, here's the top
That's
three that
awesome.
I put on, the sheet, and then as
Mhm.
we're going, something will gravitate, something will be brighter, and I'm just like, hey, I think this is. I don't know at the time why. Again, it goes back
Mhm.
to believing seen, but then
Mm.
as things kind of play out, it's like, now I know why I was gravitating towards that because everything you're
So
saying fits
good.
what I put. Yeah.
So
So
good. I'm so glad we're aligned. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. And so speaking of which, it sounds like you had different inflection points in your life path.
Mhm.
And some, even though it might feel like it's like a heavy roadblock, it really is helping you pivot to something that's serving you your highest and best, right? And so
Mhm.
is it that during the pandemic was there like a spiritual awakening from that experience? Did the spirituality play a role in guiding you in terms of the different pivots or decisions you made, in the past decade or so?
I have to say, I grew up in a faith home. I grew up in a
Mhm.
Catholic home. And throughout my formative years, I went to church. High school, I was a church youth group kind of gal,
Yeah.
and even into my early 20s. The biggest thing that happened though, Ben, is that there's restrictions within religion.
Mm.
And I know that, it's not about saying, oh, religion is bad. I don't want to come across as saying that. However, um, I think that I just, follow the rules. Okay, this is how it is. This is what you can do, cannot do. My first husband was Jewish. And although, again, there's a reason for the things that have happened in my life,
Mm.
he questioned everything I believe. It's like, why do you believe that? Why? And it allowed me to take a step back and did I believe in God? Did I love God? Did I whatever? And how I experienced my faith and how I manifested my faith, was
Mm.
it because I was just following the rules or was there something else? And I think that for me, I then became more open to other things. Open.
Mm.
So for instance, I'll give an example. In my 20s, if you had said to me, hey, you need to meditate, right?
Yeah.
And because mindfulness will help you,
Right.
my first reaction, my early 20s, would have been like, oh no, I don't think that's allowed. What, that's not, and very black and white.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, meditation is a big part of my life now.
Mm.
It's a big part of something that keeps me grounded. Now, through the pandemic, I will say I had identified myself in my role in the corporate environment. My last role was chief innovation officer for an educational company. That was as high as I was going to get necessarily. I mean, CEO, which I never really wanted the CEO, but I made a lot of the decisions for this company. And I helped to grow this company to a lot of great things. But I also knew that there was something tugging at my spirit that kept saying, you need to go. You need to, it's time. But I wasn't doing it. One, because I call it my frenemy. The behavior was so innate to just do this role, right? That's what I was doing. It was
Mm.
automatic. And the other one would caught changing and pivoting, going and doing something else would mean being uncomfortable, would mean being trying something new that may, not necessarily knew what it was like. So I stayed in that role. But when I separated, it was a crisis of identity because I no longer had that. I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins. I work for such and this is what I do, right? I had to separate and kind of break from that role and not be defined by my title, by my job, by my responsibilities, my career. I had to define myself as a person. I had to figure out, again, not necessarily create new values, but realign my values and priorities.
Yeah.
And figure out what was important.
I can totally relate to that, Julie, because when I reflect back on my second chapter as an investment officer, and after doing it for 7 years and realizing this isn't the path that my soul wanted to be on, the imagery I get in listening to your story and how it correlates with mine is that you live a certain part of your life. I'm just using this as a metaphor, but you're wearing the color blue, and wearing the color blue, and the people you attract, your peers, they're all wearing blue. Yep. And all of a sudden, it's like once you are no longer wearing that blue, wait, what color am I really going to want to wear? And that part of that identity crisis is, well, is it orange? Is it red? Like, wait, I don't know. And it makes you really go through this journey of, okay, what do I really want before other people start telling me, oh, no, you should be this, you should be that, right? Like, it's a process. It's definitely a process. And the more you can surround yourself, I share soil, water, and sun, the outer elements. It's inner work and outer work. You have to do in conjunction. You can't just do one without the other. Otherwise, you're always going to get that push and pull effect.
Right. And it's so true, Ben. It's so true. And I think that, that's been my faith. Do I go to church? Yeah. Is it a Catholic church? No, but it is a church that aligns with my values. It really feeds my soul. But at the same time, I don't allow myself to be boxed into one thing. I'm really open and respectful of other and curious. I think curiosity has been the one thing that really has awakened, like, what is that like? What does that mean for me? And how does that align with who I am? And sort of like that quiet voice that is whispering, like, go this path, right?
Yeah.
And figure it out as you go. I think that sometimes we want the security of something that's telling us how to do it, where to do it, who to do it with. But a lot of times we're not ready to listen to that inner voice that sometimes has that wisdom that we need to just pay attention to. And for many years, I did not listen to that.
Yeah, same thing. And it's amazing when you start to listen to it that, oh, it's been there all along. I just choose to ignore it, like, I mean, one of the questions I tend to get often is, well, how do I distinguish between inner voice and intuition? Which voice should I be hearing? And it's like, well, your inner voice is just an output of what's been programmed in your subconscious. So depending on if you see the world half empty or half full, that's going to dictate with a lot of either positivity or negativity that your inner voice is repeating in your mind.
Yep.
But that intuition is coming from love. It's coming from a neutral, it's not emotionally charged. And you just have to you have to be able to sit still. And that's where meditation comes in, to be able to know. Because, if you've been speaking English all your life and that's a language now I was a guest on another show, and I know we're going off a tangent here, but it's interesting because, like, let's say you hit this inner, whether it's inner voice or intuition, you'll know which one's which. And you're hearing this word, and I think you'll probably appreciate this, Julie. You're hearing this word come up and surfacing. And in the rapidness of the wind tunnel, when your thoughts are always racing, you're hearing this word, snow. Snow. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything, right?
Right.
And sometimes you'll hit your hair again, snow. And then, but if you quiet the mind, wait, is it sí or is it no? It's been speaking Spanish to me all this time. What? That's a way it's communicating with me. But I don't slow down to know the distinction, whether is it a yes or a no. And if you're able to calm your mind, your body will tell you whether it's physical, whether it's vision, whether it's auditory. Everyone's different. Doesn't mean what comes to me is going to be the same with you, but you just got to be able to be in that stillness so you can understand how is it communicating with you. Is it trying to communicate you in Spanish or Italian, or is it trying to communicate you in English or in Chinese? We don't know.
We don't know.
But it's a language you're just not used to. So you just got to be able to receive that. And so that's what it reminds me when I'm listening to you talk, you know?
And Ben, the thing too, I think, and I say this to a lot of my clients, when we're first learning a language, you know, we're still kind of stumbling through it. But the more time that we spend speaking it and immersed in it, the better that we are able to understand the phrases. The pronunciation becomes easier to do. We get a little bit of the nuances as opposed to doing the straight word by word example that may not necessarily translate in the same way.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why it's important to really still ourselves. And again, had you told me that I was going to meditate in my 20s, I would have said, oh no, that's for other people. I don't believe that. In my 30s, I would have been like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I'm too busy. My mind needs to keep going. In my 40s, it was like, how do you do that? To knowing that it's a practice, right? And just like with yoga, some days my body is going to be a little more limber than others. And some days my mind is going to be able to be more aware and present. And sometimes I will sit in the stillness, but still, you know, maybe it's going to take a little bit more to just be able to sit in that stillness.
Yeah.
Maybe more thoughts are coming and running, but it's just about watching them and saying, oh, there they go again. Let me go connect to my breath and in that present, because our body is always in the present.
Yeah.
It's our mind that's either in the future or in the past or ruminating. It's really being able to connect back to where you are with your body so that you can get in the present.
100%. And the one distinction I just want to make, because I recognize everyone's different, is that meditation doesn't come in just one form.
Yes.
Right? If I were to sit cross-legged in stillness for 30 minutes, I would be knocked out on the 7th minute. I'm just going to be sleeping. It's just, I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
But meditation could be going for a jog, going for a walk. It could just be doing a simple breath work, right? Like I recorded that 1 minute thing because when I'm driving back home from dropping off the kids in the morning, I just pop that in. I'm not closing my eyes because I'm driving, but just breathing in and out. Just, wow. That just calms it, you know, just 1 minute. This doesn't have to be that long, right?
You know what my favorite meditation form is?
What's that?
Is when I make my afternoon tea. Because typically I'll make it around 3:00.
Yeah.
It's typically that time that you're just like not ready to quit, but sometimes you're just in the middle of things.
Right.
And I go and I turn on the tea kettle. I sit there and I listen to the water as it starts to boil. And just really being present in the moment. And then as I'm pouring the water into my cup and I stir the tea and I drop the honey. I have one of those old-fashioned little honey things that you swirl in the thing in the pot.
Honeycomb.
And then it goes down, and I love that because I just watch the honey so slowly, but just really being present. And that really, for whatever it really does reset me. It's a simple 3-4 minutes tops out of my day, but it is that reset. Now, mind you, I run a meditation group. Did I tell you that? I run a meditation group in the mornings.
No.
You're welcome to attend, but it's 4 a.m. for you.
Okay. I will be in bed by then.
Yeah, you will be in bed. Yeah. So every morning, and this started during the pandemic because I knew that a lot of people were struggling with just their mental health and anxiety. So I said, you know what? I was going through my meditation teacher certification, and I said, hey, if anybody wants to meet me, I'm going to run a meditation room. And I started to run it at 6:30 a.m. I don't know what I was thinking. So 6:30 a.m. I would log in, and now it's moved to 7. And it's 10 minutes. And basically you show up, you don't turn on your camera. I don't turn on my camera, but I walk us through a meditation every morning, just so that Monday through Friday, so that you can kind of reconnect, recharge. And some days I have tons of people. Some days I have one person. I have a faithful person that's there every day. And some days I have just a couple others, but it's a great way for us to really restart our day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I didn't know that, Julie, but that's great
Yeah,
that you create that environment for
I call
folks.
it peaceful you.
Peaceful you. Love it. Love it. Well, is it only for your clients? Is it open
No,
invitation
it's for
or
anyone. It's for anyone.
okay, you don't have to share the link
I'm
later
going to
then,
share.
but
I'll share the link. Yeah,
lovely.
it's just in Zoom. So, but
Lovely.
I did, and it's
Yeah.
on the podcast. It's called Peaceful You. I actually did a 21-day meditation challenge
Mm,
on, and I recorded those. So those are on the podcast as well. So sometimes people will say, "Well, how do I start meditating?" I said, "Well,
yeah.
I have 10 minutes, maybe topped 15."
Yeah.
And I send them to the 21 days. But it's a fun little thing, and for me, it gives me more than I can ever imagine because there's days in which I wake up and I'm like, oh, I have to do the meditation.
Mm,
But I end up loving that I did that because someone will come and will say, wow, thank you so much. And I am so grateful for the individuals that log in and, needing to connect to those
yeah.
moments of stillness in their
Yeah.
day. And then I'm serving them and helping them do that.
Yeah.
So it gives me more than I can give to others by the 10 minutes.
I love it. I have a question for you because,
Okay.
we're both business coaches
Hmm.
and really also transformation, I would say too. So the question for you is it happiness then success or is it success then happiness? How do you define those two words individually, but in what order do you help people understand in terms of finding that balance in their lives?
So I believe that happiness is typically triggered, and I don't love that word, but it's typically prompted
Mm,
by things.
mm,
And that most people are looking for happiness, but that things that we bring, we buy, we get, we accomplish, those are really fleeting. It's just that moment in time.
mm,
And I think that for me, success is more about, setting out an intention, deciding how you want to show up, deciding who you want to be. And then
mm.
success is making the gain, not necessarily getting there, but making the gain and feeling proud of yourself for showing up. And then continuing to say, "Ooh, look at how far I've come from where I started." That's success. A lot of times people equate success to what you achieve, what you earn, what you end up, producing. But success is really going back to that initial, like, this is where I am, and this is much further from where I was yesterday. I think that for
Mm.
me, the times, and even for my clients, when there's a lot of angst, is when we start to measure that gap, the gap from where we started and where we want to be. Oh, I could never make it there. I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to do. And then it just creates that emotion of not wanting to, oh, I'll never do it. And then you go into a wah and you get really stuck in the muck. And for me, I think that the balance also comes from understanding that why do you want to achieve that? Why do you want to go there? Why do you want to have a successful business? Why do you want to, and is what you want to complete, do, have align with where your priorities are? And I think that many people decide, oh, I want to have a successful business. I want to, replace my corporate salary, but that's not aligned to their priorities, right? Their priorities
Mm.
I am not going to work or put the investment of that takes to do certain things, right? Oh, I
Yeah.
want, and when you're not aligning your priorities with what you want, then that creates a lot of agony. And you go into this thought errors because you're saying, oh, I want to do this, but then you're not doing the work and then you feel bad for not doing the work. It's
Yeah.
all interconnected.
It is, Julie. And what you're sharing reminds me of a Bruce Lee quote, which is that always be yourself,
Mm,
express yourself, and have faith in yourself. Do not go outside and look for a successful personality and duplicate it. Because like what
mm.
you were saying, it resonates with that quote for me because everyone else's version of success is going to be different. So if you
Of
see
course.
someone achieving that, but you don't really tap in first to understand, well, what makes you fulfilled? What is it that you want to do? It's not the
Mm-hmm.
things that should bring you happiness. It's the actions that you take to
Mm-hmm.
getting there that can bring that fulfillment.
Yeah.
So what are the actions you want to take?
Yeah.
Right?
I have to tell you, when before the pandemic started, and this is a little bit of what I'm working towards again. I was in a journey to health, losing weight, and it was like, oh, I need to lose weight, be healthy. And then I decided I was eating healthy, I was losing weight, but I decided that I wanted to go to the gym and work out. And prior to the pandemic, I was actually going to the gym every day. I got my yoga teacher certification. I was very strong, but it stopped being about the number on the scale.
Mm.
Now, I never reached necessarily a goal of weighing or being, but with the actions that really brought me the most fulfillment and made me feel successful is that I was stronger every single day, that I was doing the work and I was really showing up. The goal then became not being, someone who was very, whatever success that might be, how somebody else equates it, super fit or whatnot. But I was the person, and this is what I wanted to become. I was the girl that went to the gym every day and worked out. And then becoming that identity made me feel proud. But I couldn't compare myself to somebody else. Yeah. I couldn't compare myself to what somebody else did next to me at the gym. Yeah. Because every time I stopped being me and wanting to become them, then it would become a difficult thing.
Yeah, totally. I say this often, but it's like you can't just look over at another table and copy their answers because everyone is taking a different test. And instead of playing that comparison game or being caught up in that game and that energy, it's more of, wait, what is the direction you want to go? And just focus on that and creating that habit, right? And so speaking of habits, Julie, you're a Tiny Habits certified, right, coach?
Yeah, Tiny Habits certified coach.
Tiny Habits certified coach. So tell me, what is it and what compelled you to be certified in that arena?
Okay, so simply put, if I have any type of certification, is mainly purely selfish. I read Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I loved the book. It was great, and it gave me some great tips. But for whatever reason, I just kept thinking it's not working for me. Like, why can't I create these habits for myself? And I kept trying to figure all of this out. And then eventually I was on Clubhouse, which is one of my favorite platforms. And it's an audio app in which you go in and you kind of speak. And anyway, I listened to Dr. BJ Fogg in one of the rooms. And I'm like, who is this guy? And he's talking about habits. And then, I did my due diligence, checked him out. And he is the founder of the behavior lab at Stanford University. He has been studying habits for over 20 years. He founded the behavior lab at Stanford. And one of the things that he has, unlike James Clear, James, brought on a lot of great research, but basically he made, some thoughts or opinions on habits. But everything that Dr. Fogg teaches is that habits happen when your brain feels good. Your brain changes when it feels good. So like we were talking about, when you make yourself feel bad about something that you didn't do, your brain is not going to start doing the behavior. The other thing is we need to stop trying to rely on motivation to create the habit. Because if you want to go to the gym and you haven't been going to the gym, you're going to have to rely on motivation. And maybe January 1st, or maybe the day after your pants don't fit well, you're going to be very motivated. But as the time passes and you have, that's not such a big motivator, the difficulty of a task is going to prevent you from doing it. You're also not automating that. So what Tiny Habit teaches is that you need to, one, find the anchor moments in your life. What are the automations? Because again, your brain likes to automate and be efficient. So there's going to be things that you're already doing. And then you want to go ahead and pair the desired behavior to that anchor moment. when you pair that desired behavior to the anchor moment, then you do the desired behavior, but you want to do it small, so tiny and minuscule that it would be, you're going to be like, oh, I might as well do it. It's only one pull up. Oh, it's only filling my water bottle. Oh, it's only opening up my program for writing. It's only, finding that one client I'm going to reach out to. I'm not going to reach out to them. All I want to do is pull up their information. Because you do that, it's so tiny, you just do it. And then immediately after you do the thing, you celebrate. And then when you celebrate, you give yourself credit for doing it. And this is where people are like, oh, I don't know what you mean by celebration. It could be giving yourself a thumbs up. It could be smiling. It could say, go me, look what I did, right? When you do that, then your brain starts to automate that behavior. So you always want to pair the desired behavior with an existing behavior that it's already automated. So find your aspiration, whether it be beginning a workout routine or whether it be maybe creating a writing habit. You want to write a blog for your business, or you want to start, maybe you want to turn off some of the distractions. You're not going to go big or go home like most people think, but you're going to start small. And Dr. Fogg has found that that is how we're able to create long-lasting behavior without having to rely on repetition for 20, 30 days, but actually your brain starts to automate the behavior much faster. And there's no design time. So Tiny Habits for me has been very successful in learning it and then applying into my life. Then I became a certified coach. And now what's exciting is that I use this framework to help my clients as well. Because a lot of entrepreneurs say, oh my gosh, I don't know where my day went and I didn't accomplish anything that I wanted to. So I teach them some of the framework, and then we create some of these tiny habit frameworks around what they already are doing so that they can accomplish the things and feel productive, do the things that they need to in order to move themselves closer to the goals that they want to accomplish for their business and for their life.
Yeah. It's really helpful when you make it bite-sized so that's easier to digest, right? You don't have to bite such a big chunk in life. It's more of how do you instill that discipline and consistency. That's kind of what I got from what I heard from you, Julie. And so I'm curious, in terms of the roadblocks you see your clients have, whether they're starting a new business or growing their professional career. I say on my show that, everyone wants to just upgrade a car, right? If the business is a car, from a Camry to a Ferrari, it's all about horsepower, how to get more horsepower. But at the same time, it's like, well, what limiting belief 10,000 pound baggage do you have in your trunk? Because that gets carried over to your new car anyways. By letting that go alone, by virtue, you're going to go faster. And so with that said, Julie, my question to you is, what have you seen as the top habit that you advise your clients to start instilling? And what is the top bad habit you want them to start breaking? Because it's sort of a push and pull, right? And so I'm curious, in your experience, what has been either a top habit as well as what's the top bad habit to break?
Yeah, this is so good. I have to tell you that I'm a teacher at heart. So one of the first things that I typically do with my clients is I use a very prescriptive approach, a diagnostic prescriptive approach. First, we really try to see, number one, what are the ways in which they sabotage themselves? And again, I took the training and I'm in the middle of that certification program for mental fitness coaching. And one of the things that we all have is this innate judge. And our judge, mine and yours, are going to still judge us, but are going to be very different. The voice is very different. But from that, we also have other cast of characters that are sabotaging us. And for me, my sabotaging behavior is a high achiever, a restless, and a controller. Those are my top 3 saboteurs. I have other traits of the other saboteurs. There's 10 different ones. But some of my clients may have a saboteur after their judge that is the people pleaser or the hypersensitive. And what ends up happening is your habits really are based on some of these sabotaging thoughts and behaviors that you have. and really being able to help one to break or to change or to create new habits is really important to understand. How is it that they sabotage themselves? What are the behaviors that are existing? And then really be able to start to create, number one, new definitions for them, and also start to look at the sage inside all of us, right? The sage that sees the gift, even in the situations that can takes us off course. And when we start to really see what is the gift in the situation, and then leveraging that self-control muscle or that awareness, and going back to your mindfulness, to really centering yourself in the moment and allowing to expand and create more expansion for your emotions. And that's one of the first things that we really identify with my clients. I think that a lot of my clients, though, women, and we go back to what we said earlier, it's comparisonitis. Comparisonitis is the biggest thing that all of us tend to at one level or another have. But the reason it's so prevalent is because we live in a society in which everyone is seeing what everybody is doing right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing everybody's highlight reel. This is one of the reasons I started the podcast, because I know some really incredible individuals. And when you look at them from the outside, you see this super successful person or this wonderful, like I'll give you an example. I have a friend. She is a very successful artist. She has these gallery openings. Her paintings go for hundreds of dollars, and it's beautiful. So when people find her and they say, oh, wow, I wish I was that painter. I wish I was that talented, right? But what they don't realize is that my friend Chelsea is going blind.
Oh, wow.
And then she started painting because those are the shadows that she sees. So I wanted to share the story of somebody else's journey to where they are, their journey in confidence, their journey to the direction of their dreams. Because I want to normalize that maybe you want to be an artist and maybe you're not going blind, but whatever challenges you have, it's okay to continue to show up and move forward, because those are the challenges that actually are the gifts that will allow you to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
That's important, and that's why for all of us, it's important to know that it's normal to want to compare and despair. It is normal to actually see that, oh my gosh, look at that person. They have all these clients, or their business is going really well. How do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? And stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, focus on what you can control. What you can control is how you show up. What you can control is how you prioritize. How you control is your habits daily. What you can control is what you choose to think and believe.
Yeah.
And not believe about because you're seeing it, but because you have an understanding that that's meant for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Got it. So the takeaway I got from that, Julie, is before you embark on which new habits to create or which ones to remove, it's really having that self-assessment first on where you are. What are, using your word, saboteurs in your life. And one leading saboteur you see, particularly in women, is the comparison saboteur. And so maybe
I will say the people pleasing would be one of the most.
Got it.
Ben, in positive intelligence, we have a quiz. Did I share this quiz with you? I should share it with you. It's a quiz that your listeners can actually take to figure out. And now the positive intelligence course is based from the #1 New York Times bestseller by Shirzad Chamine. I don't ever say his name correctly, so I'm sorry. But he is also from Stanford University, and he led the IFC, the International Federation of Coaches, and really his book is on positive intelligence and how positive intelligence, you can leverage it to actually achieve and be more successful in life. But he has the quiz for your saboteurs. You can define which are your saboteurs and how they affect you, and the lies that the saboteurs tell us. Because #1, all of us have a judge, right? My judge is always telling me like, oh my God, Julie, I can't believe you're going off in this tangent on Ben here in this podcast, right? And now my awareness, right, has allowed me to see, oh, there's my judge again telling me, that. But that comes with practice.
Yeah.
And then how you decide to act or how you decide to move forward after that is happening is either you go into the automation of like, fine, I'm telling myself that I'm not good enough, that I shouldn't be doing this, and then go into my behavior of shutting down, or, oh, I hear you, Judge. I hear what you're saying, but let me keep in being aware and creating new behavior.
Got it. Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. Yeah, no, please share the link.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good one.
I can't wait to see where your saboteurs are. You're going to have to share them.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So in terms of advice and action steps that our audience can take, for our listeners that are either entrepreneurs or career professionals that are ready to start thriving in life, you mentioned a little bit about the Tiny Habits framework, about pairing the habits with a positive emotion, right? Can you break down easy steps? And because I think when this episode is released, it'll probably be beginning of next year. So
yay.
So with that in mind,
perfect.
What are some simple steps of a Tiny Habits framework you can share that our audience can take to to conquer their goals for 2023?
So here is one of the things that I have found. I was doing some reading and I was down a rabbit hole. One of the things that I learned is that most people don't accomplish their goals because they don't write them down. That's first and foremost. Yeah. So I want the listeners to figure out what is it that you want to accomplish, whether it be for the entire year or, for your maybe you're at the first quarter or whatever it might be. I don't necessarily set intentions or New Year's resolutions, but I do I do come up with a word for the year. So my word for the year this year is connection. So one of the first things that I do is I remind myself that I am a person, right? I'm defining that identity for myself. I am a person who has meaningful connections with others and creates meaningful connections for others. So you're going to get an email from me saying, hey, Ben, I just met so-and-so. You should meet with them.
And vice versa.
Which I love that. So that's, I want the listeners to really go back and remind themselves, like maybe in the morning, whether you're having your morning coffee, and this could be a really simple, tiny habit. If you don't drink your tea or whatever, or pick the one thing that you do every morning, right? So every morning after I sit down to have my morning coffee, I will write down in a piece of paper, in my notebook, or I will, go in my phone and look. And I am a person who connects people to others every day. I am a person who moves their body daily. I am a person who is working on meaningful things for their business daily, right? Or opens their calendar and understands what is it that they are doing? Just something very tiny and small. Also, for me, when I sit at my desk, which is my anchor moment, the first thing that I do when I sit at my desk is I open my calendar. And that's my tiny habit. Now, when I'm looking at, I come up with my top 3 things that I want to accomplish, the things that are going to move me really the most forward. And those things are defined based on where I want to be in the week, at the end of the week. At the end of the week, that's something that is also contributing to where I want to be for the month. And that monthly goal is, again, the big elephant from the quarter and the bigger elephant from the year. So break down and reverse engineer your goals. Reverse engineer if you want to lose weight, if you want to maybe save enough money to travel, then you're going to write in your calendar, hey, I am saving to travel around the world. So I need to put money in my bank account for my savings. Whatever it is, start small, but remind yourself of what is it that you're setting out to do. Because most people are living just by default. They're not designing. They say they want something, but they don't design how they're going to get to it.
I love that. So what I heard from you, Julie, is writing it down, because it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. So if you write it down, you're making that in of itself as an action. So that becomes commitment. And then picking something that's consistent to achieve whether it's quarterly, whether it's half year, whether it's a whole year
Mm-hmm.
goal, but to have that alignment. And the one thing I'll add to that is like Andrew Carnegie has said this, which is that there's little success where there's little laughter.
So good.
And if you can't pair it up with a positive emotion,
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of fall into that recursive trap that you mentioned before about motivation is just fleeting. It's not going to
Yeah.
be always be there
Yeah,
consistently.
for sure. For sure.
So it's got to invoke a positive emotion, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then it makes you think, well, why is it that that's the goal you want for that quarter, that year, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is? But have fun doing it, because if you
Oh,
don't
for
have
sure.
fun, it's
Absolutely. And I think that that's the thing about our business, that when you're an entrepreneur, we decided to be an entrepreneur because we want to be the captain of our ship.
yeah,
And being captain can be really fun. You get to decide what does it look like.
right.
And it's not a I have to do this for my business, it's I get to.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so two more questions, Julie,
Okay.
as we're wrapping up. The question I always ask my audience is, if the DeLorean was real and could travel back in time,
I know this question.
if you can travel back in time 10 years ago and speak to the Julie that was in her 30s,
Mhm.
what would you share with your younger self?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say to her is something that I heard maybe about 5 years ago that definitely has made a big change.
Hmm.
Um, Discomfort is the currency for your dreams.
Ooh, say that again.
Discomfort is the currency for your dreams. And many of
Hmm.
us avoid being uncomfortable. Many of us avoid being, rocking the boat. And we like to stay in just living by default, not design. But when we start to say, you know what, like I'll give you an example. So, for instance, in my mid 30s, and this is why I would say that this is what I would say to her. My mid 30s, I knew my marriage, I was unhappy. And I also knew that I needed, no matter what I did, it wasn't going to work out without going into a lot of details. It just wasn't. And I was so afraid of what people would think. I was so afraid of, oh my gosh, I was afraid of even like, would I be able, like, my brain used to tell me, like, well, what if you leave? Oh my God, you'll end up homeless. You're never going to be able to take care of yourself. I was so afraid of the unknown, right? I mean, that was
Hmm.
silly. I had a really good job. I had a better job than my ex-husband did. So it's not like I couldn't take care of myself because I've been doing that for so long.
Hmm.
But I needed to. My dream was to be in a relationship that was meaningful, that was an equal partnership, that was supportive, that made me feel cherished. Those were dreams. But I was not willing to be uncomfortable to get to those dreams. And it wasn't
Hmm.
until I took that step and said, wow, this is going to be hard. I can't stay here anymore.
Hmm.
And I didn't do it so I can go and find the relationship. I did it because it was for me. But
Yeah.
that paying that price of being uncomfortable and sad and going through the pain of a breakup um, really is what paved the way for me to get to where I am today.
Wow, I felt that, man. I felt that.
Mm,
And the feeling I felt, Julie, is that it's almost like this warm blanket you just want to hold, and just letting her know, like, look, you're loved and supported, and that
mm,
discomfort is something you can lean into if you just have, going back to, hope and confidence.
mm-hmm.
If you can believe in seeing and just have that self-confidence that everything's going to be
Yeah.
okay, then it makes that leap a jump or a step and more willing for you to actually take it. Right.
Oh, 100%. And it's about the journey. Stop focusing on where are you going to end up in the destination. It's all
Yeah.
about the journey. It's all about the everyday. Ben, did I tell you that when I did the Camino de Santiago the first few days, I was so
Yeah.
intent. I'm like, oh, I need to get to this destination. And I was really miserable because I wasn't paying attention to the beauty and the relationships and the experiences. And then when I started to just say, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy every step of the way and notice when it's hard and when I'm going
Yeah.
uphill, but then also decide, you know what if I don't get there? What if I just sit here and have a great drink with these new people I just met, or really take in the countryside and be okay with that. The journey is the real happiness, the real excitement, the real everything, as opposed to arriving at a place that you eventually will have to begin a new journey again.
Yeah. I love ending with that note, because it's what I felt from what you just shared, Julie, is it's not happiness that derives from a thing. It's the happiness is derived from an action. Taking the action of the journey gives you one step closer to finding out what is that innate happiness your soul's yearning to experience.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Oh man, we could be on for another hour, but we have to start wrapping up. Julie, thank you so much for your time. Now, last question I have for you is, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I am Julie DeLucca-Collins on all of the social platforms. I also you can find me on my website at goconfidentlycoaching.com. And if you want to take the Saboteur quiz, or if you want to do Tiny Habits, because the Tiny Habits Academy puts together a free course for people to learn tiny habits. No one's going to try to sell you anything, but you can work with a certified coach like myself or somebody else. You can go to goconfidentlycoaching.com/quick links. And then all my links are there for you. You can get my business resources. You can get anything that you feel that may be of value to you. And I hope that your listeners really find something that they can take away and incorporate, so they can go in their journey to being more confident in living the life they imagined.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And we'll include everything in the show notes. And, for your listeners, if you feel you resonate with Julie's energy, it's hard not to. If you resonate with Julie's energy,
you're so kind.
Please reach out. We've been part of the same mastermind group for almost a year now, and
has it been almost a year? Oh my goodness, how exciting! I love it.
No, it's I'm very grateful that our paths crossed and that we continue to grow together. And so I'm very thankful for you to be here today, Julie.
Thank you to Pat Flynn for putting his SPI Pro together. And you're the one who reached out to me originally.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for you. So thank you. Do the work that you're doing, because you're making a big impact and ripple effect in the universe.
Thank you, Julie. Folks, what a delightful chat with my friend today. I'm so glad to start this new year with what Julie shared today. The biggest takeaway I got from today's interview is how Julie defines confidence. Confidence is the ability to be able to do the thing, even if you're starting small, and deciding that it's not about doing it perfect, but just doing it and taking that leap. It's not motivation that allows you to create a habit. It's actually feeling good that allows your brain to start encoding a new behavior. So whatever you set out to achieve for 2023, as Julie has said, write it down. Get clear on your intentions and write it down. Find those anchor moments in your life and pair it up with a desired habit. Take bite-sized steps and celebrate your wins in each step. Consistency and tiny habits will amplify and magnify your success in achieving your goals. You've got this. If you enjoyed Julie's interview, share this episode with your loved ones and friends that you feel can benefit. I really appreciate you joining us today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that we can thrive together and live an enriching life physically, mentally, and spiritually. We've got some incredible guests this year, and I'm going to be hosting live workshops, so I'll share more details in the next few episodes. Let's make 2023 a phenomenal year. Until next time, folks, be kind to yourself. Be in the light. Be you. Thank you so much for tuning in to my Boom Vision podcast. If you'd like to find out more about me and this podcast, head over to benjaminyeh.com. That's spelled BenjaminYeh.com. JAMINYEH.com. If you haven't already, click subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.